So for this project, you're going to need a main colour for your pillow. I'm going to be using this sage green colour, and it is a chunky double knit yarn, and I've got about 100 to 150 grams of this, depending on the size you want to make. Then for the moss, I've just got a variety of different weight yarns and different sizes, so I've just got scrap amounts, or I've got quite a bit depending on how I feel I want to use them. The more variety of colours you've got and the more variety of weights and textures, the more realistic it's going to look. And then I'm also going to be using a 5mm hook, but you might also want to grab a smaller hook for later on just to tuck any ends in, which is going to be much easier if you use a smaller hook. And you're also going to need a stitch marker. So we're going to be making 2 of these circles. As you can see, this is how big I've done mine. So it's just sort of like a small pillow size, but if you want to do more rounds you can. And yeah, you want to make 2 of these circles. So I've already done one, and I'm going to show you how to do it. So take your main colour and make a slip knot. Like that. And then with your hook, you're just going to make a chain of 3. 1, 2, and 3. And then we're going to slip stitch into the 3rd chain. So insert your hook into the 3rd chain, and then yarn over, pull through that chain, and then pull that loop through the bottom loop here, and that is going to create a ring. Okay, so you should have something like this, where if you spread apart those stitches, you should have a very small hole in the middle, and that's where we're going to be placing our stitches. So in total we're going to be doing 6 single crochets into this ring. Alternatively, if you want to do a magic ring, you can. I just find that this one is much more kind of sturdier. So I'm going to do 6 single crochets. So I'm going to insert my hook into the middle of that ring, and then I'm going to yarn over and pull back through. 2 loops on the hook, and I'm going to yarn over again and then pull through those last 2 loops. So now that is a single crochet done. I'm going to do 5 more. So once again, insert your hook into the ring, yarn over and pull through, and then yarn over and pull through those last 2 loops. Again, insert your hook into the ring, yarn over and pull through, then yarn over and pull through both of those loops. So now I've got 3, I'm just going to do another 3. So that's 4, that's 5, and the last one, that's 6. So once you have 6 single crochets, just pull on this tail and it should draw in the hole, and then take your stitch marker and place the stitch marker into that very last 6th stitch that you've done, and that is just going to mark the end of the round. So that is round 1 done, and round 2 we are going to be increasing the amount of stitches that we've got in our round, so we're going to be doubling them. That means that we're going to be doing 2 single crochets into each stitch all the way around. So rather than doing 1, we're going to do 2. And from now on, we're going to be working in the back loop. So the back loop is just going to be where these V stitches are. You're going to take the one furthest away from you and make your single crochet in there. So starting off with our first stitch, insert your hook into that first back loop. So that's the loop furthest away from me. I'm just going to loop this tail over so I can include it in the stitch, and I'm going to make 2 single crochets. So just like we did for the first round, I'm going to insert my hook into that back loop, yarn over and pull through, then yarn over and pull through 2. And I'm going to do that one more time in the exact same loop so that I can increase my stitches. Insert my hook, yarn over and pull through, then yarn over and pull through 2. And that's going to be an increase. So we're going to be doing an increase into each stitch. So 2 single crochets into each stitch, and we're going in the back loop only. So taking that next back loop, insert your hook, yarn over and pull through, yarn over and pull through 2. And do another one in the same stitch, insert your hook into that back loop, yarn over and pull through, yarn over and pull through 2. Into the next back loop, insert your hook, yarn over and pull through, yarn over and pull through 2. Once again, insert your hook into that same back loop, yarn over and pull through, yarn over and pull through 2. So we're just placing 2 single crochets into each back loop until we get to the stitch marker. In that stitch marker you're going to do another 2 single crochets in the back loop, and then that is the end of round 2. So I've just done my last 2 single crochets in the back loop. I'm going to take the stitch marker out and I'm going to put it in that very last stitch that I just done. So you're just moving it up each time. Now for our next round we're going to still be increasing but not as many times. So I'm going to do 1 single crochet into the back loop in the next stitch. So just a normal one, and then into the second stitch I'm going to do 2 single crochets into the back loop. Then you just want to alternate this all the way around, so 1 single crochet into the next back loop and then 2 single crochets into the next back loop. So it's always going to be 1 2 1 2, and I'm going to repeat that all the way around. By the end of the round you should have 18 stitches. So take your stitch marker, place it back into that last stitch you just done. That's the end of round 3. Now for round 4 we're going to be doing a increase every 2 stitches. So we're going to do 1 single crochet into the first 2 stitches and then 2 single crochets into the third stitch, and repeat that around. So 1 into the back loop of the first 2 stitches, so just 1 and 1, and then into the third stitch 2 single crochets into that back loop. So we're still increasing, but the amount we increase gets less every time. So I'm going to do 1 single crochet into the next 2 back loops, and then into the third I'm going to do an increase. Again, 1 single crochet into the next 2 back loops, and then into the third an increase. And I'm going to continue that all the way around. By the end of the round you're going to have 24 stitches. So I've just moved my stitch marker up to the round that I've just completed, and now I'm ready to complete my next round, which is round 5. So for round 5 I'm going to be doing 3 single crochets in the back loop and then an increase into the 4th stitch. So just 1, 2, 3, and then into the 4th stitch an increase. Repeat that again, 1, 2, 3, and then into the 4th stitch an increase. I'm going to repeat that all the way around, and by the end of the round I'm going to have 30 stitches. Now at this point you should kind of see the sequence that I'm doing. The next stitch is going to be 4 single crochets and then an increase. The next stitch will be 5 single crochets and then an increase, and I'm just going to keep going up and up and up until I reach the round of 14 single crochets and an increase, and I will let you know what round that is. But yeah, I'm basically going to continue until it gets to that size, because that was the amount I did for the first circle and I was happy with that size. But if you want to keep going, you can. If you want to do less amount of rows than I have, then you can do that as well. So if you want to go all the way up to say 20 single crochets and an increase that round, then you can do that. Yours is going to be way bigger than mine, and you're going to have to do more of the kind of different moss stitches that we're going to do. But yeah, it is completely customizable to how you want it. I'm just going to go up to 14 single crochets and then an increase. So I'm going to come back when that's done, and then I'm going to show you the last 2 rounds. And for the final 2 rounds you are going to do 1 single crochet into each back loop all the way around, so there's no increases, and we're just evening out the edges and rounding them off. Then once you've done that twice you can then just fasten off. Okay, so I've now completed my final row. I did my 18th round of single crochet in the back loop, and now I'm just going to fasten off. So basically to fasten off you're just going to want to skip this next stitch and then insert your hook into both loops of the next stitch, so that's the second stitch of the next round, and then you just want to make a slip stitch. So yarn over and pull through that stitch, and then pull your first loop through the second. And now I'm going to show you how we actually do the moss kind of effect. So I highly recommend doing the moss sections while they are separate circles, and then we're going to join the circles later on to create the pillow. we're going to be leaving the final rows of each circle, so this row right here, where we just did our last row of single crochet in the back loop, we're going to be leaving that blank, but all of the other rows I'm going to be doing some sort of stitch to create the moss effect. So just to kind of explain each stitch, you can literally do any stitch you want, and you can do a variety of different kind of textures. So if you want to do your own kinds of stitches and do them in different orders than I am, then go ahead. Like, this is really all about freehanding and kind of just getting creative with it, but we essentially are going to be doing all of the moss sections in these kind of lined twisted loops, you can see. So where we did the single crochet in the back loop, we just created this kind of effect where all of these kind of dotted twisted lines are going around, and that's what we're going to be inserting our hook into and creating these stitches. So just taking any colour you want, and I'm going to take a dark green just so that you can see the contrast. And like I said, I don't have a official plan for how I'm actually going to do, you know, the moss, but I am going to be working in a spiral just to make things a little bit more easier. So I'm going to start from the middle and I'm going to go all the way around. It's probably not going to look like a spiral once it's done because there's going to be all sorts of different colours going across, but yeah, it just gives you a bit of guidance as to like where you need to carry on. So I'm just going to insert my hook into kind of the first sort of loop that I see that we did in the back loop, so this one right here. Again, it doesn't need to be exact, don't worry too much, just make sure that it's kind of pretty much one of the first stitches we done. And I'm working like left-handed, so I'm going to be going clockwise, but if you're right-handed you'll probably be going anti-clockwise. So just take your colour, make a slip knot, and I'm just going to show you a variety of different stitches that you can do for each section, and then I'm also going to show you how to switch colours if you want to. Your other option, if you don't want to do like a smooth switch for your switching colours, you can just like fasten off and then reattach another colour and carry on as normal. So I've inserted my hook into that back loop stitch, and I'm going to pull my green yarn through. And then I'm just going to chain one to attach it. I'm just going to start off with a simple ruffle stitch. So like I said, you can do single crochet, half double crochet, anything you want. So I'm just going to show you the single crochet. So in this same stitch, I'm just going to do, say, 3 single crochets. So 1, 2, 3. And then into the next stitch you can do the exact same thing. 1, 2, 3. And I'm just going to show you what that looks like once you do a few more. So as you can see, because I've done a lot more stitches in one space, it starts to kind of curl and ruffle and create that kind of moss shape. However, the stitch is not very tall, so it's not going to kind of come out of the pillow as much. So that's how you would do maybe like a single crochet ruffle. So I just wanted to show you guys a few examples of how each stitch looks on top of your work. So this is the puff stitch. You can also do other stitches, which I'm going to link some lovely examples in the description. Then I also did some loop stitches just to show you how they look. And then I also wanted to show you how different colour combinations looked next to each other using different stitches as well, just to kind of give you a visual of how it is going to look once you get started. So that's pretty much all you need to know for making the moss. You can obviously do as many different stitches as you like, you can do them in different orders, and then you just want to do that all the way around in a big spiral. Okay, so this is what it looks like once I have completed my whole kind of moss design. So as you can see, I've got loads of different textures, and again, I just didn't really have a plan of what I was actually going to do, but just some things that I didn't mention before in terms of like stitches that I've done here. I've just kind of created some like kind of small stick like shapes. So I've basically just chained up a certain number, and then I've slip stitched down the chain and then slip stitched into the stitch on the actual circle, and I've repeated that a few times to just do a few different sizes to get this kind of branch kind of look. And then I've done the similar thing over here with some green yarn. Again, just loads of different varieties of numbers, how often I did certain stitches, that it's all different. So that's the kind of beauty of this pattern, is you do not need a plan and you don't need to do everything correctly. And if you do kind of make a mistake in your sequence, it doesn't matter, because all of this is very like rough looking, and that is how it's supposed to look. So once you have completed your moss pattern, you want to stop at that kind of final round. So you should have one more round around the outside, no more of those little like lines going around. You should have crocheted around all of those like loop lines, and then you should just have your final round. And I can't find my 5mm hook, so for the last round I'm going to use a 4.5, but just carry on with your normal hook. And this is what it looks like on the inside. So you should have something like this, and then your design. So I'm just going to take this stitch marker out now, don't need it anymore, and I'm going to basically place the inside part of the second circle facing upwards. So the inside, or the wrong side, should be facing upwards, and then we want to place our moss side down on top of it. So you should have something like this, and it is going to look very bulky and it might look a little bit intimidating, but I can assure you that it is completely fine if you just can keep following just these sort of stitches all the way around. So we're essentially just going to be attaching these two seams together, so the last round of our moss circle and then the last round of our normal circle at the back. And you can do this with any stitch you want. I'm just going to go ahead and probably use like a half double crochet or maybe a single crochet. You can use a slip stitch if you want, that's fine. It's going to keep your stitches nice and tight and, prevent anything from coming undone. But it is kind of a tight stitch, so I recommend using sort of a medium to loose tension with it, because you don't want to cinch all of your work in and create kind of like a dip in the work. You want everything to be still nice and circular. That being said, if you don't want to do just a normal round, you could continue with your kind of ruffle design and do a final ruffle by placing, your hook through both of these stitches and then doing whatever ruffle stitch or messy stitch you want to do to attach them together. But I think I'm just going to go with something simple and just leave the kind of middle part to be the limelight, if that makes sense. So just taking my main colour and making a slip knot, and then taking my hook, and you can start literally anywhere on the circle, but just to make things a bit easier, I'm going to start where I did fasten off. I'm just going to go straight into that stitch where just before I did the chain one, so that last single crochet, and then you just want to grab literally any single crochet on your second circle like this, because it's all got the same amount of stitches in the round, and then you just want to pull your slip knot through both of those stitches like that, and then just chain one to attach it, and then you don't have to worry about the yarn slipping out. So at this stage, like I said, you can do any of these stitches you want to attach it. You could just do a normal round of single crochet or half double crochet, and then you could carry on with your rounds of random stitches after that, but I'm just going to keep the edge simple. I think I'm just going to do a half double crochet around the edge so that my last edge is still visible. So yeah, so just going into the exact same stitch as I just chained one, I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook into the front stitch and the back stitch. And when I say front stitch and back stitch, the front stitch will be the first stitch on the moss section, and the back stitch is the first stitch on the back circle section. So I'm just grabbing both of those stitches on my hook, yarning over again and pulling through both of those stitches, the back and front, and then you should have 3 loops on your hook, and then to finish, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. Okay, I'm just going to weave in my ends as I go. So into the next stitch, I'm just going to yarn over, pick up the next stitch on the moss part, pick up the next stitch on the back part, and then weave these ends in. So I'm literally just including these ends as if they were part of those stitches. Yarn over and pull through, 3 loops on the hook, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. So I'm just going to do that again into the next stitch, yarn over, insert my hook into the next front stitch, insert my hook into the next back stitch, yarn over and pull through, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. Okay, so I'm just going to carry this on all the way around the circle, and once I've done my very last half double crochet, which will be right here and right here, I'm going to slip stitch back into that first half double crochet we made and then just chain 1 and fasten off, and that is your circle all complete. Now bear in mind that we're going around the circle, so I recommend once you reach about 3/4 of the way, so roughly about here, to stuff your work and continue stuffing right up until you reach that very last stitch. Depending on how kind of tough you want the pillow to be, if you want it to be nice and dense, fill it with more stuffing. If you want it to be squishier, fill it with less stuffing. I'm going to be using yarn scraps, so yeah, I'm just basically going to fill the center of the pillow. So I'm going to come back when that is all done, and then I'm going to show you the final result. And this is what the final result of the moss pillow looks like. I hope you guys all enjoyed this tutorial, and let me know what you guys would like me to make next, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye guys.